To this online presentation, Blessed Michael McGivney, Devotion in Poland. On behalf of the Blessed Michael McGivney Pilgrimage Center, thank you for your interest as we continue to examine the life and the legacy of Father Michael McGivney, parish priest and founder of the Knights of Columbus. In this session, we'll shift from the historical focus of past presentations and look at devotion to Father McGivney. You may be surprised, and I'm sure you'll be pleased, to learn of the growth in popularity of Father McGivney, especially since his beatification in October of last year. Today is May 5th, 2021, and this presentation is being recorded. It will be available for viewing on the McGivney Center's Facebook and YouTube accounts. Links to these sites are on the resource sheet, which is available for download via the utility on the right side of your screen. You're welcome to submit questions through the utility as well. I'll try to introduce them as able within the presentation. I expect that our session today will last about 45 minutes. Joining me is my colleague, my Knights of Columbus colleague, Szymon Czyszek. He is the Director of International Growth in Europe. A native of Poland, Szymon has been involved in promoting devotion to Father McGivney as well as the fraternal organization that he founded, the Knights of Columbus, throughout Poland and Lithuania and Ukraine. He's been with our organization for 12 years. Szymon, I'm grateful for your joining us today, and I'm mindful that you are 6 hours ahead of us in time. You've been sharing photos and details regularly with those of us here in New Haven about the events in Poland that have honored Father McGivney. And I'm amazed with the popularity and devotion, especially since Poland has so many saints that it claims, especially 20th century saints.
Yes, well, good evening or maybe good afternoon to all the attendees from the United States and the Western Hemisphere. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm delighted I can be part of this webinar to share with you what the Knights and many Catholics throughout Poland have been seeing and doing since the announcement of the beatification date of Father McGivney. So, to answer your question about why Polish Catholics are so interested in Father McGivney, why we have so many blesseds and saints coming from Poland, I would say this, that yes, it is true that Poles can be proud to have a long list of the saints, and we can talk about Saint Faustina, Saint Maximilian Kolbe, Saint Jacek, the founder of the Dominicans in Poland, Saint Brother Albert, and of course the most famous one that we are of course very proud of, Saint John Paul II. So the list is very, very long, and we know that these saints, are known for their heroic deeds. Think about Maximilian Kolbe, his ultimate sacrifice when he offered his life in exchange for the life of a husband and father. This is the sacrifice and the sign of love for the other that we can reflect on and should emulate. Think about Saint Faustina and her diary, which is unique in the, I think, history of the world, and you really don't see too many examples of such a personal writings of a dialogue between a religious sister and our Lord. So yes, Poland can be very proud of the long list of saints. And also what I will also say, which is interesting, I'm calling right now from Krakow, which is called by many as a city of saints. So yeah, we are proud of our heritage of all the blesseds and saints. But if you think about Father McGivney and why he would be so appealing to Catholics in Poland, I would say this, that Father McGivney was a realist. He embodied a kind of holiness that I think is closer to home, that it's somewhat easier to identify with him. I think virtually every Catholic belongs to a parish, and every Catholic had some kind of a interaction with a parish priest. So when you look at Father McGivney, you see a parish priest who lived an ordinary life, but in an amazing and the most extraordinary way. And that's why I think we should all look at Father McGivney and the things that he did as a priest. You know, when he worked at St. Mary's in New Haven, he saw that his parish was losing people. He saw that his parishioners were attracted to join organizations that weakened their faith. He saw parishioners that got involved in activities that pulled them away from the parish. And we also have to remember one important thing. He lived and served during the pandemic. So if you think about that historical context, and then you start looking at our parishes today, don't these challenges look similar? Don't these problems that the parishes experience, don't they look similar today to those that Father McGivney had to deal with? So what should be our response? I believe that I think we should all look at Father McGivney and see what he did. He decided that the best way to renew his parish is by working with Catholic men. He thought it was essential for men to form the men in the faith so that they can take co-responsibility for the parish. And he thought if he can reach the men, well, then he can reach the families. And that's why he formed the Knights of Columbus, and his response to the crisis, that worked, and we see it even today. So if you are thinking today how to renew your parish, especially as we come out of pandemic, if you are thinking how to deal with the fact that so many people are leaving the church and may not be coming back, I think we should all learn and look what Father McGivney did.
It's an excellent example, and you make so many cogent similarities. To me, it's a surprise because, as I believe I've shared with you before, here's a priest who is little known, or was little known, outside of his region. He was born here in Connecticut. He ventured a short distance, 100 miles north, 100 miles south, 100 miles west or so for his seminary education, but really traveled very little beyond that, and was little known until really his cause for canonization was introduced 20 years ago. So the fact now that because there are Knights of Columbus in Poland and many faithful in Poland, and they've come to realize this example and embrace it, is very encouraging for those of us here, because we look to the people of Poland as our older brothers in the faith, and I don't mean that much in the way that the Pope used to talk about the Jews, but as a Catholic country, Poland has adopted the faith much before the United States.
Yeah, that's true. But I would say this, that, and I know you mentioned this before also, but why would Polish Catholics be interested in the life of an American priest? I think that, I would just make a larger point that United States and Western Europe has been successful in exporting its culture, either good or bad, but it was a successful export or promotion of the culture. And I think that what Catholics in the United States could be encouraged to do would be take pride in your heritage, and be proud of the fact that that your church produced a person of Father McGivney, who I believe is a role model for priests today. So as we come out of pandemic, there are many priests who are wondering, what should be our response? How should we revive the parishes? What are the ways we should, what kind of relationships we should have with parishioners? And I think Father McGivney, for his ministry, for the choices he made, I think he is a great example for priests, not only in the United States, but also, I think, in Poland. And we see testimonies from a number of priests who got to know, who got to read about Father McGivney, saw what he did, what the choices he made. And they say today that the life and the example, the holiness of Father McGivney is an antidote to the crisis of priesthood, crisis of the parish life. And I think that pandemic and all the restrictions that have been put in place is really a unique opportunity for all of us to have a restart of the missionary work inside the parishes. And I think Father McGivney and what he did could be a great role model for us. So I think that's why Father McGivney can be so appealing beyond the United States.
You make a good point, and I think about the Second Vatican document, the Second Vatican Council document that refers to the universal call to holiness. And this is something that our past Supreme Knight, Carl Anderson, pointed up about Father McGivney as he was offering remarks about our founder on the threshold of his beatification. He talked about how Father McGivney's vision, even some 80 years before the council, he saw that we all, each one of us, the people in the pews, are called to holiness. It's not the job exclusively of priests or members of the clergy. It's not the job exclusively of religious sisters. It's the job of all of us. And he challenged his first knights to follow that path to holiness through their outreach and charity, through their prayers, their devotion to their families. And this is what he obviously symbolizes today there in Poland.
Yeah, so when you think about Father McGivney, you can see that, well, he didn't leave theological or philosophical writings, or he did not contribute to the reform of the liturgy in the church. But what he did is that he anticipated the call of Second Vatican Council for greater involvement of the laity, and that's something that I think is a huge contribution that we can talk about today. And we see the benefits of the choices that Father McGivney made. He decided that the most critical thing for him to do is to engage men in his parish, to form them so that they can live the Catholic faith. And he taught them, as I said before, to take co-responsibility for the parish. I believe that the future of the church depends on whether we know how to teach men to take that co-responsibility for the parish and the church. And this is our missionary work. And we learn that work from Father McGivney. And if we implement that, if we focus on this, and if we bring that vision to our parishes today, we can become not only fans of Father McGivney, but true followers. And I think that's something that I think Father McGivney would like us to do, that we not only know his history of things that he accomplished, but we follow him in his footsteps and try to recognize his charism, the choices he made, and to replicate these today. And also, speaking about the universal call for holiness, I think Father McGivney is also a great source of hope for every Catholic, that if you live your vocation completely, if you devote yourself to your vocation, as Father McGivney did, this is a sure path for holiness. You don't need to do extraordinary things. The goal is to live and be a witness of God's love, collaborate with God's grace, and as Father McGivney did, be a man of works of mercy. And that could be the way that can take you to the sainthood. So I think it's a great source of hope for every Catholic today.
Well said. Szymon, during our conversation, we've been looking at photographs of some of the events, some of the gatherings that have occurred in Poland. And I just thought perhaps you could offer just generally some sense of what the response has been and what we've been seeing and will continue to see through these slides.
Yes, so we prepared some photos from Poland just to show the devotion that is present here. And you know, Knights of Columbus in Poland have been at the forefront of promoting the life and mission of Father McGivney, of course. But we see how appealing the example of Father McGivney is. And these pictures that you see exemplify this. Right now, what we are seeing is an image of Father McGivney, and also we see that was recently blessed by Archbishop of Krakow at the Divine Mercy Shrine. This image will be used by a local council that exists and functions at the Divine Mercy Shrine. You see a number of priests over there too. And on the left-hand side, you see, of course, Archbishop Wacław DEPO, state chaplain of Poland, who right before the beatification, you know, he wanted to promote the legacy of Father McGivney. He took that photo and it was shown through Polish media. Previously, we also saw some pictures of different events that Knights organized throughout Poland. And you see how that devotion spreads widely throughout the country. Knights, you know, in a way, by fulfilling the mission of Father McGivney, want to engage men. You see the pictures from the events in Radom in central Poland, where every month Knights gather at one parish. And they, of course, they switch it, you know, every month, and they invite every Catholic man to join them in a rosary prayer with some reflections and a talk, and then it is followed by a procession outside to show the devotion that you know, Catholic men have to the faith, but also to Father McGivney. And you see here a procession of knights walking through the streets of Radom, and showing the, you know, the image of Father McGivney. So this is something that that you can get to experience when you come to Poland.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I mean, the public display of devotion for Father McGivney is amazing. I'd like to shift conversation to the miracle now. As we know, a very important element or a very important occurrence that needs to take place in the path to sainthood is a miracle. The first one of those miracles was the healing of a child in the womb that allowed for his beatification. How was that perceived in Poland, please?
Oh, I think the miracle, as always, is a sign of God, that He chooses to reveal His power and His care for people. And as we see for this miracle of healing of Mikey Shackle, it has so many meanings and aspects that are so relevant for Poland today. But I would just start maybe with this one, that when you really look at the events that led to the beatification, when you look at the miracle through the eyes of faith, you know, you start to wonder, why is it that God chose to reveal His power for the intercession of Father McGivney to offer that miracle for the family and for the unborn child, of course, for the unborn child, but in the context of the family. You know, we have to ask these questions. You know, why is it that the miracle was about healing the unborn child? You have to ask yourself, why is it that you know, that the healing was discovered through ultrasound technology that the Knights are so much involved with? You know, why was this? Why was a child with Down syndrome saved? Why was this child conceived in a large family, in a family where father believes that his vocation is to serve other fellow Catholics, a father who is a devoted brother knight? These are the questions that I think we should all ask ourselves, why it happened that way. And I think that the answers to these questions will have a very deep meaning for the future of the Knights of Columbus. And I think as John Paul II said, in the designs of providence, there are no mere coincidences. So this is something that makes people pause and reflect why we got to see that kind of miracle. But there's also a very important, other important context, very relevant for Poland. Right before the beatification, like a week before the beatification, the tribunal in Poland, the Supreme Court, let's say, issued a ruling that basically restricted and limited abortion for children with field defects. So the child, Mikey Shackle, who was healed miraculously, children who were in the same situation in Poland, they will be protected by the law. There will be no ability for people to perform abortion. But what happened when that ruling came down? Massive street protests erupted, and the people were demanding that the laws on abortions would be relaxed, that these restrictions would be removed. And they were saying, well, there is no, we should not demand people to be heroic in their life. And as we looked at these protests, that sometimes became somewhat violent. Some churches were attacked, which is not something that I'll be very proud of, but that's what really happened. We looked at the miracle of Father McGivney. We look at the miracle of Mikey Shackle, and we see that parents were given a choice. You can either have an abortion or deliver a child stillborn. Impossible choice. And what did they choose? Well, they chose a better path. They decided to turn to God. They decided to pray for the intercession of Father McGivney so that God can intervene and heal their son. So as we watched these protests, we thought, well, this miracle offers a completely different perspective for the debate that is going on in Poland. That there's a different way that we can choose. And I think that's something so appealing and so relevant for Poland today. And that's why the story of the miracle caught a lot of attention from the Catholic media. There were pro-life leaders who covered that story. And so another reason why the miracle was so important for the Polish context as well.
And that makes good sense. You mentioned earlier that the life of Father McGivney, confirms a simple truth that just fulfilling your vocation, living your life as you are called by God, is a path to holiness. It's a very basic premise, but it's still something that I think we all sometimes miss in our day-to-day considerations. It's obvious that this is something that has been observed by the people of Poland and embraced. I think we can take a lesson, if you will, from the example that we see in the devotion that is being expressed there.
Yes, the choices that Father McGivney made and his path of life, again, as I said, is a sign of hope for every Catholic, that if you live out your vocation fully, if you are completely devoted to your vocation, this is going to be something that can bring you holiness, but it's also a cure for lots of crises that people go through. So rediscovering your vocation, renewing your vocation, this is something that I think Father McGivney encourages us to do through the example of his life. I'll also say that if you think about this, we talk maybe in general terms about the life of Father McGivney, but if what I would like to say about the images or the things that Polish people, I think, see in Father McGivney, I would say that we see 3 images of Father McGivney. We see an image of a leader, but not a political leader, but someone who knew how to respond to the need, who saw the need and was able to react, but also a leader who had a vision to engagement in the parish, to respond to the need. He had a specific purpose. He wanted to take care of the families, take care of their spiritual and material needs. And he also set the path to fulfill that vision and accomplish that purpose. And what he did is that he created Knights of Columbus to accomplish just that. So when you think about the image of Father McGivney, I see the image of a leader. We also see an image of a shepherd, a priest who was devoted completely to the service of his parishioners. He, as I said, he didn't write theological or philosophical works. He didn't, reform the church liturgy, but he wanted to do one thing, and he accomplished that. He was a priest who took care of the spiritual life of his parishioners. He knew and he loved his sheep. Okay, so this is, I think, a second very important image. And the third one that I would say is that he was a loving father. The life story of Father McGivney shows that he loved his parishioners with a true fatherly love. You look at the story of agreeing to be a guardian of Alfred Downs, or when he accompanied Chip Smith on the last moments of the period before he was executed. You see that Father McGivney was a true father to his parishioners, to people that were given to him. And I think in a way, as we celebrate a year of Saint Joseph, and when you think about the apostolic letter that Pope Francis wrote about Saint Joseph, remember Father McGivney, his middle name was Joseph too. Pope Francis wrote this, that whenever a man accepts responsibility for the life of another, in some way, he becomes a father to that person. And when you look at the life of Father McGivney, being a guardian of Alfred Downs, being accompanying Chip Smith, isn't that what a loving father would do? Didn't he take responsibility for the people who were entrusted to him? This is the example of a priest who went beyond what was expected from the priest, because a loving father will do everything for his child. And that's why I think is so powerful about Father McGivney. The other thing that I would say, and also referring back to this apostolic letter from Pope Francis, Patris Cordi, Pope Francis wrote that Saint Joseph had this creative courage that emerges, especially in the times of difficulty, when we deal with difficulties. And when you deal with these challenges, you have an option. You can either give up and walk away, or engage with them. And it's so easy to walk away. But your way to responding to challenges shows, if you have this creative courage, you may discover resources that you didn't even think that you had. And I think that's what Father McGivney also discovered. That's what he did in his life. He engaged with the difficulties, and you see how many people then benefited from that during his lifetime, and even today, when we see the Knights of Columbus, the work that the order does throughout the world. I recently met with Cardinal Dziwisz, a former secretary of St. John Paul II, and we spoke about Father McGivney. I presented him with a book that we'll talk about later. And he said, I always wondered who was behind this powerful and very important organization. And he was grateful for that book. So So these are the images that I see of Father McGivney that will be appealing to the Catholics in Poland.
Well, I love the example of creative courage, and I also am very grateful for your creativity in introducing St. Joseph into our conversation. I mean, we've seldom discussed the fact that Michael J. McGivney is Michael Joseph McGivney, and how optimal that you would introduce that theme in there. Thank you for the reference to Patris Cordi. Szymon, you've also shared a video with us. Is this an appropriate time to share a little clip about
I think so.
Some of those activities?
Yes.
Rycerstwo to wielka szansa dla współczesnego świata, zwłaszcza pośród zagubionych mężczyzn. Pierwsze kapelańskie doświadczenie, myślę, że mnie bardzo wiele uczy. Ile mogą naprawdę mężczyźni, ile mogą zrobić dla parafii. Mamy młodych rycerzy, którzy mają po 20, po 25 lat i już doskonale wpatrzeni w postać błogosławionego McGivneya odnajdują po prostu swoje miejsce nie tylko we wspólnocie Kościoła, ale przede wszystkim we wspólnocie braterstwa.
Widzimy, jak zmieniają się rycerze, ale widzimy również, jak zmieniają się rodziny rycerskie. I to jest taka ścieżka, na którą zapraszam każdego mężczyznę, często tego, który może stoi dziś na rozdrożu, może waha się, którą ścieżką podejść, może czuje się niepewnie w czasie pandemii. My mówimy, zaufaj Panu Bogu, zapraszamy Cię na tą ścieżkę działania w konkretnej formacji, gdzie sąsiadów, znajomych przemieniamy w braci. I to jest prawdziwe dziedzictwo księdza Michaela McGivneya.
Jestem przekonany głęboko, że wzór księdza Michaela McGivneya jest lekarstwem dla księży, którzy dzisiaj pytają, co mamy czynić, jaki mamy budować Kościół, w jakich relacjach powinniśmy zostać ze swoimi parafianami. Jego otwartość, jego świętość w postawie i troska, miłość do wszystkich parafian jest na pewno antidotum na dzisiejsze czasy.
Szymon, thank you. Those were such wonderful testimonies. The testimony about turning neighbors into friends and friends into brothers, and then the associate chaplain's commentary about, the holiness of McGivney, the devotion to his flock, especially in times of pandemic. He died at a very young age. Why? Because he contracted illness during a time of pandemic, but he didn't cease from his ministry as a priest.
Yes, so I'm very happy that we could show this short clip. It was taken from the ongoing relic tour of Father McGivney relics. We started a little bit over 2 months ago, and the relic tour has been very successful. We travel, every parish that where we have a local council can host a relic for a week. We can talk, of course, about more details here, but you see the images right now of Father McGivney's relics carried by a priest in Częstochowa, and of course we had our Archbishop DEPO of Częstochowa, our state chaplain, who opened the relic tour in Poland. You see the growing devotion thanks to this relic tour throughout the country. You see also knights present, and despite the pandemic, concerns, of course, in compliance with the restrictions imposed by the government, but still, the presence of Father McGivney did not discourage people from coming to church. They wanted to be present. The founder came to them, so they want to be with him. In a way, but I think the larger point I would like to make is that when you think about Father McGivney and the fact that he lived and died during the pandemic, that should give us a food for thought. Isn't he the person that should also be present with us during another pandemic. When you think about the fact that he was beatified during the pandemic, and there were so many other beatifications that were postponed. In Poland, for example, we hope to celebrate the beatification of Cardinal Wyszyński last June, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was postponed. But the beatification of Father McGivney went on. So you can just wonder, what's the reason for that? Why is it that the church decided that that priest should be beatified during the pandemic? So that gives us a question. And again, when you look at the history through the eyes of faith, well, you may wonder, maybe there's a reason why Father McGivney was beatified during the pandemic. Maybe he's the person that should continue his ministry, or he should continue his presence during another pandemic. That maybe we are called to bring him to people, especially during that time. And that's why Knights in Poland thought that this is very important, that we start the relic tour so quickly to bring the message, bring the example of Father McGivney, of serving people, even during the pandemic. And that's why we did what we did. Right now, what you are seeing on the screen, you see some of the coverage that the beatification of Father McGivney received in Poland. Here you see articles that were published by major Catholic weekly magazines that really reach virtually every parish in the country. And these articles were published for the weekend of beatification. So we can't think about any better promotion that we could get from that. Here you have the one of the largest magazines in Poland, 400,000 copies. They circulated this copy week before the beatification, and also reached hundreds, if not thousands, of parishes throughout the country. You had the cover story, and you had the spread about the life of Father McGivney, an interview with Archbishop Mokrzycki, former secretary of John Paul II, explanation about the miracle. And then the next issue that was published after the beatification also had the whole story about that, about the events. Here you see a brochure that we developed that was sent out to every bishop and every rector seminary throughout the country, so that people get to know Father McGivney. And why do we do this? What's the reason it's important to educate Catholics about the life of Father McGivney? Well, if you want to build a devotion, if you want to encourage people to pray for the intercession of Father McGivney, well, I think they should learn first who he was, so they can become friends with him, they can relate to him, and then they can ask him for help. So that's why we were so pleased to receive so much coverage in the media. Previously, you also saw some pictures, or you see the state deputy here, who was invited on the day right after the beatification on November 1st to the TV studio of the largest TV station in Poland, the largest secular TV station, where he gave an interview about Father McGivney, his mission, about the Knights of Columbus and the beatification. We can remember that Pope Francis made a comment about the beatification during his Angelus. And
in his Angelus, yes.
And state deputy was there to to speak about the beatification. So no better promotion that we could think about. So we were very, very grateful of that. And then that will be probably seen on the next slide. A week later, well, we couldn't travel to United States because of the restrictions, but we thought, well, our mission is to thank God for the gift of beatification of Father McGivney. So where do we go? Where do Catholics in Poland go? They go to Częstochowa, they go to Jasna Góra, to Our Lady of Częstochowa. And here we are, seeing the images from the Mass of Thanksgiving that was televised for the largest Catholic TV station in Poland. And we see an image of Father McGivney right by Our Lady. So this is a way for us to help Catholics throughout the country learn who Father McGivney was, so that they can go and pray for his intercession, ask for his intercession. And we already see, because of the the beatification, because of the relic tour, we see a steady flow of requests, prayer requests that come from the Guild website. And there are hundreds of them coming from throughout the country, not only from the knights, but from ordinary parishioners who see Father McGivney, who see him as a pastor. You see, these are the petitions that were collected at one of the parishes where we held a relic tour. So you see how many of them there are. In one parish, there was a practice that every day there will be a rosary said, and then these intercessions will also be included. That people were encouraged to submit them, and then they'll be read. And the idea is that we'll collect all these prayer petitions, prayer requests, and we'll work with our friends in New Haven at St. Mary's to place them at the tomb of Father McGivney. Speaking about the tomb of Father McGivney, maybe we can mention one thing that happened on the day of beatification, which I thought was very important for us, for the men, but also for the priests in Poland. Besides the live coverage of the beatification mass that was broadcast through EWTN and also especially by the largest Catholic TV station, TVPI, we also thought that, well, Beatification Day is a day of special grace, and we remember that when John Paul II was beatified on May 1st, 2011, on that same very day, second miracle happened for the healing of the lady in Costa Rica, that then led to the canonization of John Paul II. So we thought that, well, Beatification Day is a special day of grace. What can we do? How can we collaborate, if possible, of course, with God's grace? We also thought, well, about St. Faustina. When you think about the two miracles that led to her canonization, the first happened in the context of the family. The second pertained to the healing of a priest. So here with Father McGivney, the first miracle is about a healing of a child who was part of the large Catholic family. Maybe we don't know. There's something that we can pray for the priests. So we started this initiative, and within a very short period of time, we received requests for prayer for over 700 priests from Poland. And Sister GAUDIA SKASS from Our Lady of Mercy congregation, who works at the St. John Paul II National Shrine in Washington, D.C., she graciously agreed to lead the prayer in Polish by the tomb of Father McGivney on October 31st, on Beatification Day, and to pray for all these priests. So within a very short period of time, we received hundreds, as I said, over 700 names of priests from throughout Poland that Catholics in Poland wanted to pray for at the tomb of Father McGivney. And it was a very powerful experience, I think, for many priests. And we know those that we were able to identify, we share with them that the knights and sister pray at the tomb of Father McGivney on the day of the beatification. So
I'm so glad that we were able to collaborate in that way and to allow for the connection between here in the United States and Poland on that special occasion. Szymon, we're coming to a point of where we had essentially thought we would conclude, but you have yet another video that
yes.
I'd like to share with the audience before we go. Maybe we could pause for a moment and have a look at that.
Wizyta księdza Michaela McGivneya w naszych parafiach, w naszych sercach jest takim znakiem nadziei na to, że wszystko, co najlepsze, jest jeszcze przed nami. Dlatego też mężczyźni, zwłaszcza mężczyźni, powinni zaufać i obrać błogosławionego księdza Michaela McGivneya jako swojego patrona, tego, który wspierał mężczyzn w swoich czasach, także w bardzo trudnych.
Poprzez swoją służbę kapłańską troszczył się o godność i jedność w rodzinach, zwłaszcza emigrantów,
sam będąc znakiem miłosierdzia Bożego. Organizował działania, które kształtowały braterską wspólnotę. Był z ludźmi w ich smutkach, w czasach pandemii, śmierci i żałoby.
Cud, który się wydarzył, zatwierdzony do beatyfikacji księdza McGivneya, ale także już wiele świadectw, które napływają skuteczności jego wstawiennictwa, jego opieki, jest bezwzględnie zachętą do tego, abyśmy my również korzystali z jego wstawiennictwa.
Szymon, those comments really strike me, and they echo much of what you've already said. But there was one comment by the Archbishop where he talked about McGivney, especially during the times of sorrow, the times of pandemic, of being an ambassador, a minister of mercy. And of course, that's something that is so well known in Poland.
Yes, no, exactly. I would say that the fact that he lived and served during the pandemic is a source of inspiration for so many people, and I think that's why he's even more relevant today for Catholics in Poland. I hope that also for the country. We see here images from various events as part of the Relic tour in Poland. We not only go to parishes, but also religious sisters of St. Clare wanted to see Father McGivney, wanted to pray by his relics, and you see this beautiful picture they took when Father McGivney visited them. So we go beyond just a parish. We go wherever we are asked to come with the relic tour, and this program will go on for more than a year. We have relics traveling throughout the country, and as part of the program, also in a response to the miracle of Father McGivney, we thought that what should be our response? What is it that if Father McGivney, God's power revealed for this pro-life miracle, is there something that we could do that could be part of the relic tour? So we thought that we should have the a work of mercy associated with that relic tour, and it is a pro-life effort to support the homes for single mothers, support families who are striving with some financial difficulties, or some places that want to support some pro-life initiatives. And I just will share a story from one place where the Knights already provided some financial support and also bought some items for the homes for single mothers. The director of that institution said that women who stay at that place, their experience of man was that the man neglected them, rejected them, that their decision to deliver a child was not accepted by the man. And when they saw the assistance that they received from the Knights, it transformed the perception of what men can do. That men there are also men who can respect their dignity, who can respect their choices, who can respect life. So that's also a way we can affect the reality in Poland, and through that concrete work of mercy that we would like to promote during this relic tour, as again response to the miracle that happened that led to the beatification of Father McGivney. The other thing that we also do during the relic tour, you see the display on the life of Father McGivney that is similar to the one.
It looks familiar.
That's outside St. Mary's. And again, this is the point of this display, is to help people understand who Father McGivney was, so they can become friends with him. You see the images here of the display in different places where the relic tour takes place.
Please, we should point out that all of these panels were designed and authored by faithful men in Poland.
By two talented designers from Poland who worked with us to develop this display that ended up at by St. Mary's in New Haven, and then we developed the Polish version that now travels with the relic throughout the country.
Beautiful. So, we've talked about so many dimensions of the devotion to Father McGivney and his special appeal to priests, his special appeal to men, his special appeal to the pro-life ministry. I mentioned at the outset that you are a native of Poland and obviously are residing there. The Knights has been in Poland now for approaching 2 decades, but it's also expanded in more recent years to your neighboring countries, to Ukraine and to Lithuania. Tell us about the growth of the Knights of Columbus there and how it has become integrated into the life of the faithful.
So I think that the Knights of Columbus, in coming to Poland, wanted to fulfill a request of Pope John Paul II to bring the work of charity, unity, fraternity, and patriotism to his native land. And because of that request, we may truly say that every Catholic man that we invited Knights of Columbus, every new council that we establish, every work of mercy that we offer to the people we need, every devotion is really in a unique way, a way to respond to that request. And I think many Catholic men in Poland are grateful that they can be part of that response to St. John Paul II. And I would say that, with the current pressure of secularization, we see, and I think the Catholics in Poland see, bishops see, that there's a need in our country for an evangelization inside the parishes that can then lead to authentic witness by so many Catholic families. And there's a hope, and I think that this is what the leadership of the Knights of Columbus in Poland understands very well, that our efforts to grow the membership, to put faith into action, to build a culture of life, and to defend and protect families in the times when the culture is very hostile to the family, is an essential work that is needed today. So I think the presence of the Knights of Columbus has been providential, because it helped prepare men, and it continues to do so, to respond to the challenges that the church faces today. Some people may jokingly say that a church has been very successful in attracting women, but the ministry and pastoral work to engage men has not been so developed. And so I think Knights of Columbus offer a very attractive method to bring men, and with men, families, and with families, you can renew the parishes. So with all the things that the Knights are doing in Poland, bishops can see that this could be the path for the new pastoral initiatives for the church in Poland. But also with the experience of Poland, neighboring countries like Ukraine or Lithuania, we see a tremendous growth, especially in Ukraine these days, where the Knights from both rites work together to also bring the message of Father McGivney, also work together and be the sign of unity in the country that has been so divided by politics, by history, and the Knights can be the force of unity in that place. So this is a great mission that we have ahead of us, but I think with the help of Father McGivney having such a great intercessor, I think we can have a hope that we will advance that mission.
Well, speaking on behalf of myself, of course, but I think also my colleagues here at the Blessed Michael McGivney Pilgrimage Center, it's very encouraging, inspiring, in fact, to see the devotion spread in different places of the world where there is a different culture, but the same faith. And to know that our founder, a priest who was born here in Connecticut and who ministered here in Connecticut, has appeal, and his life is a model, an example for the faithful in other places, is again another confirmation of our faith. So we're delighted. Szymon Czyszek, I want to thank you so much for your time. Your preparation was extensive, and I'm truly grateful. And I ask you to keep spreading the devotion to Father McGivney and the message of the Knights of Columbus. unity, patriotism, charity, and we need to carry that forward so that his message is understood, recognized, and practiced. I want to thank our audience too for their participation. Many of them have been very faithful in attending these sessions, and I hope you appreciated that little transition that we made today away from what led to Father McGivney's beatification and now ultimately what the fruits of that beatification are presenting. I want to share that our next session will be on June 2nd. We'll be interviewing Father Philip Brown. He's a Sulpician father, and he's the rector of St. Mary's Seminary in Baltimore, the same institution that Father McGivney completed his, what we would refer to today, his major seminary, the final years of his priestly study. And he'll be talking about how McGivney is a model today for those seminarians and for the priests that are being newly ordained. There is a link to that in the handout that I mentioned earlier, and a link will also be emailed to everyone who is registered for this session. I want to thank my colleague Tiffany Locke, who's been so helpful behind the scenes with our presentation today. And Szymon, it's been our custom to have the guest presenter lead us in the prayer for Father McGivney's canonization. So may I appeal to you to do so, please?
Yes. God our Father, protector of the poor and defender of the widow and orphan, you called your priest, Blessed Michael McGivney, to be an apostle of Christian family life and lead the young to generous service of their neighbor. Through the example of his life and virtue, may we follow your Son, Jesus Christ, more closely, fulfilling his commandment of charity and building up his body, which is the church. Let the inspiration of your servant prompt us to greater confidence in your love, so that we may continue his work of caring for the needy and the outcast. We humbly ask that you glorify Blessed Michael McGivney on earth, according to the design of your holy will. For his intercession, grant the favor I now present. For Christ our Lord.
Amen. Szymon Czyszek, thank you so much. Thank you to our audience. I hope to see you again on June 2nd. Until then, I hope that Father McGivney provides great intercession for you from his seat in heaven. God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Peter.